A lone diplomat targeted in an assassination attempt navigates the politics and culture of an alien race in C.J. Cherryh's Foreigner. The first book in a long-running 22-book series, Foreigner sets the stage for 20 years of storytelling. In today's video, we'll talk about what it's like to be the lone human living in an alien society, where potential enemies lurk around every corner and friendship is literally a foreign concept. C.J. Cherryh describes Foreigner as a novel of first contact, but that's not quite what it is. It's so much more than that. It's a novel of suspense, a novel of political intrigue, a novel of alien culture, and a deeply character-driven story of a lone diplomat who is trying to survive his loneliness, his frustrations with an alien race that he doesn't quite understand, and who is trying to make the best in a situation where he has absolutely no control. The beginning 40 or 50 pages of this story are very confusing and narratively jarring. We start with the starship Phoenix traveling through hyperspace, and when they arrive at their destination, they're completely lost. None of the stars are familiar. The planet that they choose to orbit is not familiar, and they have no ability to figure out where they have arrived and what their destination is. So they decide to orbit a planet that looks like it could be lived on by humans, but they find that it's already inhabited by an alien race that seems semi-intelligent. They don't have a very advanced technology at this point, but maybe like Stone Age type technology. So a faction on this starship decides to go down to the surface of this planet and create a settlement. So, we have this very interesting setup to the story. We're looking at, how is this crew going to survive on this planet, and, when are they going to make first contact with this alien race? What's going to happen? All that. So they do make first contact, and this is maybe described in 4 or 5 pages of the book. And then the chapter ends, and all of a sudden, the story jumps forward several hundred years into the future. Very confusing start. And the next chapter we're in the middle of following this character named Bryn Cameron. And he is a diplomat that is living among this alien race called the Tevi. So the way the novel starts and then the way it cuts into this other kind of story was very unexpected. I kind of wondered at one point if my book was misprinted and missing pages, but it wasn't. That's just how it starts. As the story goes, we learn kind of a little bit of the past few hundred years, that there has been a war among humans and Tevi that then led to a peace treaty where all the humans are isolated to an island where none of the Tevi are allowed to be on, and only one human, this diplomat and interpreter, is allowed to live among the Tevi at a time. And this it's kind of all explained in pieces throughout the story of how this treaty came to be. We don't get a whole lot of details on that, but we do eventually get enough background to kind of figure out what's going on. Now it takes couple hundred pages to get all these details, so it's not kind of told out to you clearly in the beginning. And what this novel ends up being is almost kind of a fantasy story, but it's not fantasy because we do have this situation where humans kind of trickle in uh, their knowledge of technology and they give this to the Atevi over time. So at this point, the Atevi they have vehicles, they have airplanes, they have a civilization. They don't have space travel yet. They don't have computers yet. Um, and this lone diplomat, Bryn, is kind of he's kind of a mediator between the human race and the Atevi. He sits in on these council meetings where he kind of provides very slowly the technology that humans haven't given the Atevi yet. The humans are afraid to just give the Atevi everything they know, because if that happens, well, there are like ecological and like societal reasons why you wouldn't give somebody a certain piece of technology without them first having a kind of the precursor to that technology. They kind of have to work their way up to it. But also, if the humans give all their technology away, are the Atevi going to go back to war and attack the humans? So they kind of have to keep this precarious peace going. And that's kind of what part of what Bryn's job is as the interpreter. Now they have a special word for it he's called the Potty. There is a glossary in the back of the book with different terms and definitions for the Atevi language. So there's a little bit of that in it. It's not a major part of the novel, like you're not having to read sentences of this alien language. It's just here and there. It's put into the novel. So once we get established with Bryn, that's what this true story really is. It's his story begins with he gets targeted in an assassination attempt because the Atevi have a very unique society. Their system of laws are done through assassinations. So like a group of people could legally declare, "Hey, I'm going to assassinate you." And if they succeed, it's all legal. But there's like all these kind of legal processes and documents and things, and yeah, they have to be licensed to be assassins and things like that. And as far as this alien race, they're very human-like, even though their culture is different. It's similar, but it's also different at the same time. Kind of reminded me of the Cardassians in Star Trek. So it's a very humanoid alien race. This isn't the type of story where you're gonna get this wildly different aliens. Like they can communicate with humans very easily. They're bipedal. They're taller than humans. They're bigger, but they have the same basic body shape and all that stuff. So it's a very Star Trek version of an alien. So don't expect anything crazy with first contact and all that from this novel. It like I said at the beginning, it is kind of described as a novel of first contact, but I didn't really feel that from the story, especially since we get straight into once we get into Bryn's story. Like these people have known each other for 500 years at this point. Like that's not really first contact. And Bryn's not even the first diplomat that has lived in this society. So Bryn is targeted in this assassination attempt, and all of this stuff, all his life changes. he is friends with the Cherryh Lord. Well, I wouldn't consider friends because that is a whole another situation. The Cherryh have no word for friendship in their vocabulary. It's not a concept to them. So this whole time throughout the whole story, Bryn is desperately trying to become friends with the Cherryh around him. He has several security guards that have to protect him during the story, and he's always trying to explain to them what it means to like someone. And when he says that he likes them, they're offended by that. So he's very he's very becoming a very lonely person, and he gets kind of frustrated at this divide that has never been able to cross between humans and the Cherryh. The words for like trust and love and like and friendship that just is concepts that are completely foreign to the Cherryh. And this is kind of a concept that is addressed throughout the story, and it's a very character driven story with Bryn having to deal with this situation. So while this Cherryh group of people, they kind of sequester him away to protect him, and there are from other factions of Cherryh that are trying to assassinate him. So we have this story of him. He has no control over what's happening. He's just being brought from one place to another. He can't get his mail. His day is very scheduled. And he ends up on this it's a kind of a castle, the Cherryh version of a castle or a fortress where he has to hide out. And the story can seem a little bit slow at times, but I feel like you have to let this story, you have to give it space to breathe. You have to just kind of relax and take in Bryn's, his mindset, his frustrations, the things he's dealing with and learning. You just have to kind of slowly take that in. And it's kind of a relaxed story for a lot of the time. But that doesn't mean it's not interesting. The whole time, we are learning as a reader about this alien culture that is so subtly different from our own. I won't be giving any spoilers on this, so once we get the world established and the story really gets going, the last 100 or so pages of this novel, we really get into like some political intrigue. It gets very suspenseful. It's kind of almost an espionage type spy thriller story with Bryn and all that's going on around him. And some things are revealed with the humans, and it's kind of revealed why all this is happening to him. But that takes some time in the story. And once it gets going, I really did enjoy this story. And it had a very satisfying ending. And it had enough to where I wanted to continue with the sequel. And this is a 22 book series, so the story is long, and it kind of needs to be a good first story, a good first book, and I think it did succeed in that. I'd like to highlight some of the strengths and weaknesses of this story, and then I'll kind of get into my final thoughts and final review of the novel. So this novel is very strong in character development. Bryn Cameron, the main character, the diplomat, the interpreter, he's a really fascinating character in my opinion. We have to watch his journey through this alien culture. As he desperately tries to learn their ways, like why they feel the things that they do, why they behave in the manner that they do. And he also tries desperately to convince them why he and humanity do what they do and feel the way that they do. He desperately wants friendship. Uh, Throughout the whole story, he really he wants control over his situation that he just doesn't have. And as the story goes along, he kind of gains maybe a little more control in the end. But that was the strong point of the story, is for sure the character development. And also the way C.J. Cherryh built this alien culture. Yeah, it's very human-like, but that at the same time, it's different enough to where I really enjoyed and wanted to learn more about this culture and world. So she really does a good job there, and that's also a major strength of this novel. The plot, while it kind of slow at times, I think it was good enough to keep the story going, and especially near the end as it kind of builds up to everything. I also think the side characters, the Atevi, are compelling in their own way, even though we don't get a whole lot from them. We don't get their perspective or anything. But from what we get in Bryn's perspective, I do really like the characters he interacts with. And with the final strength of this novel that I want to cover is it really does set you up to want to continue reading this story. So I think a good story, a good series has to make you want to continue reading, and this one does exactly that. As for a couple of the weaknesses in this novel, as I said at the beginning, the start of this story is very confusing. The first 30 to 50 pages, that narrative jump 200 years into the future is very jarring. And I wish that Cherryh would have either started immediately with Bryn's story and just kind of covered that little bit of the Starship Phoenix getting lost just throughout the novel as kind of a more of a history, or if maybe she had just written a whole completely different book that kind of covered that 200 time period, like a prequel story, and maybe she has written that. I don't know. But that was certainly the weakest point of this novel. Other than that, it does, at times it can feel kind of like a fantasy novel, kind of a slower paced build up to what's happening. And maybe some readers might get a little bored during that time, but I think you kind of have to just sit back and relax and let Cherryh tell you the story. But I can see that as being a weakness for some. For my final review of this novel, I did really enjoy this story. It's suspenseful, it's full of political intrigue. It is a fascinating, character-driven story, and I loved the alien culture, and I definitely would recommend this for any fan of C.J. Cherryh. And I will be recommending this novel overall. And with that, I will be giving it a 4 out of 5. So check it out, Foreigner by C.J. Cherryh. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my review of Foreigner by C.J. Cherryh. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and come back next time for more content.